Welcome to the Worldshapers, conversations with authors about their latest books. I'm your host, Edward Willett, and this episode's guest, Scott Baldyga, talking about his upcoming fantasy sci-fi adventure, Greater Fools. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Worldshapers, the podcast where I talk to other authors about their latest or upcoming books, in this case. I am myself an author. I am the author of more than 60 books of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction for readers of all ages. My latest and greatest projects are Shapers of Worlds Volume 5, which is the fifth in a series of anthologies featuring authors who were guests on this podcast during its first 5 years. I was limited to science fiction and fantasy at the time, and it made sense to do those anthologies. But since I'm now going into a wider range of genres, Volume 5 will be the last. However, it's out now. You can find it. It has a lot of great authors in it, as they all do. Over the course of the 5-book series, something over 100 authors, there's 106 stories, but 5 of those are mine. So that should mean 101 authors are represented over those 5 books in the Shapers of Worlds series. And you can also enjoy illustrations in the last 2 by very talented Calgary artist Wendy Nordell. So I do urge you to look up all of those anthologies, and especially Shapers of Worlds Volume 5, which is out now, and all of them were published by my Tboh Press, because in addition to being an author, I am also a publisher, and Tboh Press is my publishing company. Its latest things include some literary short fiction by David Carpenter, a book called Hello, and another collection by Dwayne Brenna called Theories of Everything. Coming up later this year, I have a new science fiction novel called Gods of a New World by Ryan Melsom, which I'm very excited about. There's a reprint of a YA fantasy novel by James Tboh called The Night Girl. And then there's some more literary fiction, a reprint called Waiting for the Piano Tuner, Waiting for the Piano Tuner to Die by Harriet Richards. And then in the fall, I have a wonderful poetry collection by Glenn Sorstad, a very well-known elder statesman of the poetry world in Canada, and another short fiction collection, literary short fiction by Calgary, Betty Hegarat from Calgary. So that's on the literary side. And then what I'm really excited about next is, it'll be like the 2 days after this goes live on May 27th, I guess that is. No, that can't be right. Is that right? Tuesday, whatever that is Cupboard Love, a dictionary of culinary curiosities. This is a reprint of a book that came out, originally in the 1990s, and then there was an updated edition in the early 2000s. Hasn't been in print for 20 years, and I'm very excited to bring it out. It's a great book. It is a dictionary, and you can look things up, but actually you're going to want to read it start to finish. It had a lot of accolades when it came out. You can see why. Very funny entries, very informative, and I highly recommend that one. And then in another month, what I'm even more excited about is my own next novel at last. It's been a while since I had a new one out, and it's a young adult fantasy novel. Well, middle grade, younger young adult fantasy novel. The characters are 13, called Fireboy, and modern day fantasy involving mysterious happenings. Let's just put it at that. There is a boy made out of fire. That's not giving anything away because it's on the cover. So look for that one as well when it comes along. And you can enjoy some of my writing. However, we're not talking about my writing any more than that right now. Let's get on to today's guest. And this one's very interesting. This is going to be the short version of his bio. There's a much longer version if you want to find it online. There's like 5 pages, but this is the short version. It's Scott Baldyga. Now, Scott Baldyga, his first book earned a 6-figure advance from a major publisher, debuted on Amazon in True Crime at #1, and was featured on Howard Stern, Saturday Night Live, CBS Late Show, Entertainment News, a 2-page spread in the New York Daily News, and a dedicated NBC News primetime special. Not bad for your first book. The book went on to become an answer on the Jeopardy game show. Scott is also a musician who has appeared on stage or in studio with 12 Grammy-winning acts. His composing clients include Spike Lee, MTV, NBC, Z.com, and professional theater in New York, Los Angeles, and Kingston, Jamaica. He has brought his award-winning indie feature films as writer/director/producer to major festivals. He's worked development for the producers of blockbuster Academy Award-winning films, including Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia, Independence Day, Godzilla, and Adaptation. You may have heard of some of those. He has acted on camera with or been directed by Jim Carrey, Fran Drescher, Sean Penn, and Milos Forman. He has rewritten pages for Disney and Walden. And he's written screenplays with producers of the Oscar-winning films Gosford Park, The Player, The Irishman, Ferrari, and Killers of the Flower Moon. And now he writes about JPEGs and magic internet money because he's very much interested in blockchain and NFTs, and that's what features in his book, which is called Greater Fools. I was just looking at the website. GreaterFoolsBook.com is where you can find out way more information. But now we're going to get it from the horse's mouth as we talk to Scott. So, Scott, welcome to the Worldshapers.
Thank you so much.
Now, we were just talking before we started. You hit me at a very opportune moment because somebody I had lined up wasn't able to do it. And then this great query from you came in. I thought, hey, he sounds like an interesting guy. So, and that's the only, we have no other connection. I always try to find connections, but as far as I know, we have never encountered each other before this very moment.
Nope. It's just all about the timing, I suppose.
Well, timing is a lot in this business.
Right.
All these various businesses, and you've been in a lot of various entertainment related businesses over the years. So why don't we start with tell us about yourself?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Let's see. I mean, ever since I can remember, I was typing on a typewriter and playing the piano in the basement.
Sounds familiar.
That's about it for me. I know. I actually snooped and I watched you singing and right. So yeah, we have that in common. That was my childhood, honestly, writing poems, writing songs, playing a bunch of music from the time I was 5 years old. I was always the musician kid. Through my only job in high school and college was playing in bands around New England, and probably the nastiest bar bands you can imagine before I could drive, right? Quite an education for me. And then in college, all I did was write. I would go to philosophy professors and say, I don't want to take your course, sir, but can I read everything Camus ever wrote and then not write you term papers, but write you short stories to prove that I understand? And these professors, as you can imagine, were like, sure. So that was my education. And then after college, I joined a Peace Corps type program. And I was sent to Kingston, Jamaica to teach writing and literature and Caribbean literature, which I'd never read before, which was amazing, at the college and high school level. And while I was there, I ended up working as a musician. So the next thing I know, I'm the keyboardist for Ziggy Marley and Damian Marley and Third World and all these amazing reggae groups. And I formed my own band, and my 1 year turned into 4. And I did some acting. I did a lot of theater.
There's a connection.
What's that?
So there's a connection. I've done a lot of theater. So.
Right. And theater. I've done theater since I was probably 7th grade or so. Yep. I'm not a wonderful actor. I've got some training. So acting on stage in Jamaica with these incredible like Royal Shakespearean trained actors was quite an experience for me. I lucked out, Ed. Like they needed the young white dude who could sing. And I was the only one on the island who could fit the bill. And so I got cast. And then I decided to move to Los Angeles, and this is 30 years ago, to pursue my career as a musician. But while I was in Jamaica, I was able to go on set with a film called Cool Runnings for a couple of weeks.
I remember that film.
My girlfriend at the time was the premier Jamaican actress of her generation and still is. And she was in that film. And next thing I know, I'm sitting between the producer and the director, and they're being my friends and explaining filmmaking to me, and letting me sit in what you call Video Village and, and learn. And the director, who went on to do National Treasure, like a really well-known director nowadays, he points to this young woman sitting on an apple box scribbling in her script, right? And he's like, I don't know why anybody would do that job. You have to be a masochist because you need to make note of everything that happens on a film set. You're in charge of the continuity, and you're the script supervisor. And cut to 1 year later, I'm Roger Corman's script supervisor in Venice Beach, because I figured, let me be a masochist and learn everything I can about film, right?
That's
And
got to be a great role in which to learn a lot.
especially to start on low budget features, because maybe everybody else is also new at the job, and so you have to catch a lot of mistakes, and you learn a little bit about every single part of the filmmaking process, from pre-production through production through post. And my journey through filmmaking and television in Los Angeles was circuitous. I'd work a job as a scripty for Fran Drescher at MTV, and she'd say, "Hey, I want you to work at The Nanny." And next thing I know, I'm in casting, working with one of the top casting directors on the planet. And then I'm working with Roland Emmerich, and they say, "Hey, do you want to work over here at our company reading scripts?" I said, "Well, sure." And then I go, and somebody takes me over to a Jackie Chan movie, and the producer says, "Do you want to be my development assistant? I know you like writing." And so over the course of these couple of decades, all of a sudden I'm rewriting pages for Disney, and I'm pitching development ideas freely to Academy Award winning producers, and they're hiring me to write scripts with them. I'm finding funding to finance my own independent films and going to film festivals. And during all of that, and I was editing, I was in casting, I was directing, I did a whole bunch of stuff, but I really always came back to writing, and I love the format of writing for film and TV. But I was writing a screenplay for a guy who produced, gosh, I forget. He won an Academy Award for what was that movie? Oh, the China Syndrome or something like this, right? The nuclear.
Yeah,
thing.
the China Syndrome. Yeah.
This guy is hiring me to write a screenplay. He gets a phone call, and it's a friend of a friend, saying, "We need a writer to write a book. Do you know anybody?" And he turns to me and he says, "Hey, Scott, you want to write a book?" And I said, "Yeah." I mean, I'd written a novel in college. I'd written a lot of plays in college.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I had written that length of project before, but this had already been national news. I never read true crime. I never read much nonfiction. For me, it was always fiction, always fantasy, science fiction, right? And all of a sudden, I'm writing a true crime whistleblower book, and it wasn't hard getting a manager. Getting the book deal was a challenge, and we went around to all the publishers, and I sat down and interviewed the guy for 100 hours. I was fascinated by the story. I wrote 1,000 pages, right? I wrote like 220,000 words or something. I'm shoehorning in every freaking cool story the guy ever tells me, right? And we got a deal with HarperCollins at Regan Books, Judith Regan, right? I don't know. Do you know who Judith Regan is?
I know the name. Yeah.
So she had, if there were 13, and stop me if I'm going too long-winded, all right? But
well, fascinating.
Yeah, okay.
That's what this podcast is about. So
okay, great. So I was, very happy to get the deal. Charlene Martin was my manager. She never left our side through thick and thin. Judith Regan's one imprint at HarperCollins accounted for 80% of their revenue, even though they had like 13 imprints, right? She did all these tabloidy things. And my book was not tabloidy, but it was, I mean, the book was called Frozen, and it was about...
Disney made a movie out of that.
Well, it wasn't exactly that one. I've got props, right? It was this one about cryonics and the folks who will chop off your head and drop it into a vat, right? So Ted Williams had happened. There was this big public thing about cryonics, and it's a freaky, interesting little subculture, right? Pseudoscience type thing. And so we get this deal, and the editor, who I think was best at acquiring, reads my 1,000-page book and comes back with 2 misspellings.
That's not bad.
And says, "Here you go, kid. It's ready to go." I said, "Gosh, I thought I might need more work than that, but okay, what do I know?" Judith Regan puts O.J. Simpson on national television to interview him about the book she's going to bring out about him called If I Did It, if I had done it. Right? Public outcry. I'm like, oh my God. Rupert Murdoch fires her from her company, dissolves the imprint. We're in line. Get the book back. Right? We found a smaller publisher. The people we're writing this book about send them cease and desist and threaten legal action because we're proving in the book they're guilty of homicide. They're guilty of horrible animal experimentation. They're guilty of all kinds of horrible stuff. So we go back around and around. We end up with Vanguard Press, Roger Cooper at Perseus Books Group, another major publisher, and these guys are First Amendment stalwarts. They're like, we publish the books other people are afraid to, and we get the lawsuits, and we understand that, right? So the book came out. They got me a wonderful publicist. I mean, it exploded for a couple of weeks. We were in the zeitgeist. It was like Saturday Night Live did a skit on the book. David Letterman did 2 skits on the book, an animated thing. They did a half-hour dedicated NBC News primetime special on the book. The book ended up an answer. My friend calls me. He says, your book's on Jeopardy. You just want, somebody just, I'm like, holy, what a, this was the dream book release. Like, oh my gosh, right? And I never wanted to read true crime. I never read true crime after, but they got me this incredible editor, Philip Turner, right? Amazing, right? We took my 1,000 pages, chopped out 800, taught me a little bit about structure, and turned it into 70,000 words. So it
was a bit more than 2 misspellings after all.
It turned out the way it should, because I learned so much. Now I used to be, oh, I'm an artiste, structure. Oh, who needs structure? Now, bro, I won't write a word until I've got the most detailed bullet point outline, chapter by chapter by chapter. But I'm your new expert on Joseph Campbell. I know Blake Snyder. I'm like I love the three act structure, the hero's journey. So that taught me so much. Because of that book, God, I'm long-winded, right? Because of that book, people would find me and be like, hey, bro, will you write my horrible, horrible, horrible story? That happened to me.
You found a niche.
I was the king of pain. It's like this company, I fell off a roof. I want to sue the company. I was a drug kingpin. I had a prison turnaround. I escaped Iran during the war. I wrote 3 books about TBI. I became like the traumatic brain injury guy. And this was, any day I can make a living writing a book, I'm thrilled. I'm happy. And I'd go back to filmmaking. I'd be able to produce and direct an independent film and then write a book and stuff and co-write books with producers and directors, right? And that's kind of like the long-winded version of what got me up to just recently, and to segue into the book, because I know your next question, one of my childhood friends says to me, Scott, when are you going to put your name on something again? He says, when are you going to start a project that you actually care about, rather than write some celebrity's mystery novel and not put your name on it, And that really hit me. And I said to myself, what do I care about and want to spend a year or 2 of my life working on and believe in? And I said, blockchain. I said, blockchain, NFTs, and trying to onboard people to cryptocurrency so that they can enjoy the community and the art side of it that I enjoy so much.
So how did you get involved in blockchain yourself? Because that seems to have been a major thing for you just a few years ago.
It really was, and it still is. So in the summer of 2021, you see the piano behind me, right? Like a buddy of mine came over to play some music, and he opens his laptop, and there's this digital drawing, this digital image, 3D image of this fierce-looking ape with a business suit on. He's got a sneaker in his mouth and a rice farmer hat on. I'm like, what the heck is that? And he looks around. He knows I collect guitars. He says, you're a collector. You might like this, right? He's like, these are NFTs. And the next 2 weeks I spent want, like, as usual, I was between jobs. Right? So the next couple of weeks I spent researching Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and NFTs, and I dabble a little bit, and I find a home amongst the art, the digital art, and the NFT collections on the Solana blockchain. I was attracted to the vibes. It was like the cool struggling artists hung out on this blockchain. The people who love collecting hung out on this blockchain. It was cheap. If you make, I bought one NFT on Ethereum. The charges, what we call the gas fees, were as much as the piece of art. And then it dropped in value. And if I was going to sell it, I would have to pay more in fees than it was worth. But on Solana, your fees are measured in the hundreds of pennies. So that's how I got into crypto, was through art.
And you found a community, obviously.
I did, man. I really did. So I joined a couple NFT communities, and each one sort of has a niche, or they specialize in something. And we can talk, if you want to, we can talk about what NFTs really are, and what's the deal.
We probably should, because it's going to tie into the book, isn't it?
It sure is, right?
So we need a little background.
Yeah.
But maybe we should move to the book.
Great.
And then we can go back and fill in what people need to know and what drove the book. So you'd found this community, and this was what you were very interested in, and you decided to write a novel. Are there any other novels set in the kind of blockchain world that you're aware of?
Are there any other
novels that you're aware of that people have written set in this?
No, I don't. I'm not aware of any. I'm not. Some of the NFT collections create their own lore, but they don't publish them as novels. And nobody that I know of, nobody has tried to combine the lore of all the different aspects of the entire blockchain into one. These are original NFTs from Solana. Most of them are.
Hold it up closer. Your fingers are in the way. There we go.
Most of them were released as NFT collections 3 or 4 years ago. And some of them, and they all specialize in something. This little pterodactyl guy here, he's a Claynosaur that was released by Pixar and Disney animators, guys winning all kinds of awards, who wanted to create their own IP and fund it themselves and not go to a studio. So they released a couple of different NFT collections where you buy the dinosaur, and they raised many millions of dollars that way so they can fund their own IP. And now they're winning awards up against Disney and Pixar and stuff for their online series, and they're building games and stuff like this. Each one of these, this is more of a business related one where guys network. This one is all about the community. This one is about, hey, let's make money, right? And this one is a thinly veiled tech company who also raised money this way rather through VC. They now have a crypto, probably one of the most popular crypto wallets in all of cryptocurrency. Value. I think their valuation is like $100 million. And this is the one I got into. The raccoon dudes, right? That's my little. That's how I'm known in the crypto world, as this little guy. It's our PFP, our profile picture.
Yes.
So yeah,
I should say, for those people who are listening to the audio only version of this, that the book cover can be seen on the website at theworldshapers.com. I sometimes forget that actually more people will listen to the audio only than will see the video, probably.
Great.
The picture will be there on the website, so people can go and look at the book cover or look it up wherever they want to.
Yeah.
Or go to your website. So there you go. So, okay, so you wanted to write a novel set in this world.
Yeah.
How did you go about plotting such a thing? And you said you don't even start writing until you have a very detailed outline and a structure and everything. So what was that process like?
Amazing. Thank you for that. I have come around in my many long years to
I have more than you do.
Maybe, I don't know. To start with theme, right? I have come around to saying I want to be able to define my theme in one word, and that's the first thing I do before I do anything else, right? So I want to. There's a lot of things to talk about in terms of crypto, right? And in a sense, intentionally, this book is crypto for dummies in story form, right? Um, I said I want to focus on community, and then I changed that to family. So the theme of this book is family, because I found a family inside of these communities. Communicating with them on Discord and chat rooms and video chat rooms, and then pretty quickly going and meeting everybody in real life at real life events, right? And these guys I'm closer to, and they might live in Singapore, than my neighbors, because we share the same appreciation for the art, for whatever this collection stands for fostering new artists, for the pursuit of furthering the technology, for crypto themes of decentralization, democratization, tokenization. But what I really want to share with people is the sense of family that you get. And in a way, if somebody collects something, right? You collect books. I can see you collect books, right? Maybe you enjoy hanging out with people who collect books, and you have a lot to talk about. Did you read this book? Like.
Some of those date back to, this is my grandfather-in-law's house, which has been in the family since 1939.
Really?
He was a member of the Book of the Month Club, and there are books, not so much here, but elsewhere, that they got through the Book of the Month Club back in the 50s and things. There used to be, right over his shoulder, you used to see a swastika because he had the rise and fall of the Third Reich.
Wow.
And I was looking at myself in the camera once. I thought, that probably I want to move that one.
Well, I mean, knowing how prolific you are, I figured that was just one of your own personal walls of books.
No, I could probably fill, it's always backwards here. I could probably fill like 3 shelves of that with my own books.
I'm sure you could. I could fill 2 spots.
So you had an idea. And maybe even before we go to that, maybe we should get a quick synopsis of the book without giving away whatever you don't want to give away.
Sure. Okay. So if anybody listening has ever seen like Ready Player One or read it, or seen Disney, or Pixar's Wreck-It Ralph, right? My story takes place in the human world and then in the blockchain world. So just like Ready Player One takes you inside what it's like to have an avatar and be inside a digital reality, where you get to go from video game to library to database to this and that. This is similar in that it's blockchain. I have a human who's about 18, 19 years old. He just didn't get into the art school of his choice. He's very socially awkward, and he's a great artist, and nobody knows it, right? And his online community through NFTs tricks him into releasing one of his drawings as an NFT, and it gets bought by a very well-known crypto influencer, and boom, he's got a collection. He's selling, he's making and this happens all the time. Well, it used to happen all the time, still happens. Kid makes $100,000 in like a weekend off of his art. And this happens, right? So he's all of a sudden being cracked open a little bit socially and pulled into the real world of human beings. He gets himself a girlfriend, believe it or not, a real girl. And then meanwhile, this kid, of course, collects NFTs, and we get inside his crypto wallet, and we get to imagine and share what is it like to be these little creatures, a monkey, an ape, a lizard, a gecko, a skeleton, a dinosaur, living inside his wallet. And then when he connects to Discord, they get to jump into the other, like, the lands of their collection. They get to go to the savannah where the herd of dinosaurs are and stuff like this, right? And so I create this. Now, I'm not telling you about the story. I'm telling you about the world. I'll tell you about the story in a second, I suppose, right? But I create this sort of continent, and in a way, structurally, the closest thing I can think of is Lord of the Rings, because these little raccoons are my hobbits. We start there. We get to know their world. We get to know the basics of what an NFT is, how they get created through the story, through their awakening for the first time ever, as they get minted, which means sold for the first time. And then we go through the process of somebody buys one, they don't want it, they put it up on a secondary exchange, somebody else buys it, it goes into their wallet, they're making friends in the wallet, and he falls in love with another little raccoon woman. And the story is he has to create a fellowship around him to go and save his lady love from the evil bad guy who has designs on robbing billions of dollars from the ecosystem, while our human guy is navigating his new career and his new girl. And they follow parallel stories of friendships and relationships until they get to this convention where in both worlds, both groups have to fight the bad guy in order to save the blockchain, save billions of dollars, right? So that's how, but it's all about community. And of course, his arc, his journey is learning to open up and care about other people, not just himself, not just his girl, accepting their help, and it's all spawned by, he thinks he causes the death of his girl when he doesn't. And once he's like, why would I ever get close to anybody? Why would I let anybody get close to me? It's just going to end in pain. Similar to my socially awkward guy who has his ups and downs as he gets close to a girl who isn't exactly who she says she is. So structurally, there's a little bit of Lord of the Rings. The world of it is similar to Ready Player One. And it's been a challenge to keep both of those structures going and have them hit the same beats at the same time.
So when you did start plotting it out, what did that look like for you? Do you use spreadsheets or scribbled on notes or stickies or what?
So through of course I've been educated in things like Joseph Campbell and Hero's Journey and stuff like this. In a lot of my film work in development, people will always shove into your hands Blake Snyder's book, which is called Save the Cat.
Mm-hmm. Heard of it many times.
Yeah, and I've sat in studio meetings where studio executives would say, oh, he didn't break into the second act on page 33 like Blake Snyder says you're supposed to, so I'm not sure he understands structure. And these kind of things happen, right? So as somebody who's working in screenwriting in Los Angeles, you have to at least familiarize yourself and understand Blake Snyder, which is he takes the 3-act structure and he breaks it down to page numbers. And there's a lot of value to it. It really is, And
it seems a bit formulaic.
It's a bit formulaic. It is, and he would have, if he were still alive, he would have agreed. But he is dissecting a formula that works in commercial film, okay? And then of course he has subsequent books where it's like the entire book is proving his point by illustrating it through examples of different films, So anyway, what I'm getting at is I internalized that his beat sheet, page 33, you break into the first act, page 50, it's the midpoint of the thing, and this and that, and and that to me is just a bit of a shorthand to get through the 3-act structure, right? So again, like I always start with theme. So I'm like, what does this guy need? It's all about family. He right off the bat finds his family in this lady love of his, loses her, decides I will never be close to anybody again. Now, I need to throw out, and so theme begets character, right? And then character begets plot. So now I have to throw at him scenes that challenge his worldview, and he's going to make some pretty bad decisions for the first half of the film, right? And I always call things film right nowadays, right? Even my books I call film, right? He's going to make some bad decisions, and then the midpoint will happen. So I structure it out that way, and I put in the sort of tent pole events in terms of he must make a change in his thinking. He must make a decision that sends him down the good or bad path. What am I going to do to make that happen? Oh, by the way, I've got this whole fellowship of characters that I also want to have character arcs. So how do I work them in? So I always I always keep theme in mind, character development, and that tells me what scenes absolutely have to be in the book. Does that make sense?
Yep. I've talked to something over 200 authors now, so I've heard every possible way of
I'm sure I'm not the only guy who thinks this way.
No, there's Peter V. Brett, who's wrote a very popular fantasy series called the Demon Cycle. But he so you get both. I like Kendare Blake is a YA author I've talked to. She just writes her first sentence and keeps going and doesn't really plot anything out ahead.
Amazing.
Peter V. Brett, and I've mentioned him many times because it did strike me. In fact, he wrote his first book thumb typing on the metro in London. He said he would write 150-page outline before he started actually writing the book.
Yeah.
These are long books. And then he would just fill in around it. So, and everything in between. So when you start the actual writing process, are you plop down in your chair and work 8 hours a day, or sit under a tree with a quill pen, or how do you like to write?
I type. I mean, I have notebooks full of ideas. Like as I'm outlining, I will take a notebook to the beach. You will find me on Venice Beach with my notebook, scribbling in the sand. Right? Somebody gave me a sailboat 6 months ago. I almost did this from the sailboat because that's where I work a lot now. I'll bring my laptop to the sailboat. So, nice. But I type. It's you know, what's the most expensive boat you can get? The one someone gives you for free.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of fees attached to having a boat.
Oh my gosh, I choose the elbow grease method instead of the spend money method. But no, but I look. Fortunately, some of the friends I made, and that's one of the amazing things about crypto and blockchain and NFTs is it's still young enough that you can get on Twitter or X or Discord or Telegram, and you can reach out directly to people who start companies that are valued in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars now, and you can reach those guys and talk to them. And sometimes they launch NFT collections, and I've become friends with a lot of these guys, because of our shared love of crypto, right, and decentralization and NFTs. I was able to get several individuals to actually invest in this book. Believe it or not, I don't know anybody else who's gotten investors into a fantasy novel, right? But these guys have given me money.
I never have. So
right?
I suppose Kickstarters maybe are kind of like that, but not really, because they're buying something that they're going to get and supporting you in the process.
Right. No, these guys, I got to tell you, some of them, well, to some of these guys, $10, $20, $30, $40,000 just isn't a big deal.
Can I meet these guys?
I know, they're mine. But also, some of them might find their way into the book as a human being, or as their character, their PFP might find its way in, or their collection, right? And
are you familiar with the term Tuckerization?
I mean, no, is it Tuckerization? No.
Yeah, that's using real people as characters in books. It just comes out of the science fiction community a long time ago. A guy named Bob Tucker and his friends would stick him into various books. So it's been called Tuckerization.
Oh yeah, I love it. I love it. Oh, there are a lot of individuals who are real life individuals who are in this book, in my book. And I've gotten, I don't mean to get sidetracked, but I got a couple investors that helped, right? So I was able to dedicate full-time hours to this. And then their money I was very grateful for ran out, and it had really provided me with about a 1/6 of what I need. And I just kept going. I kept going on my own dime. I'll be honest. I just couldn't stop, and I thought it would take me 6 months. I thought it would be 50,000 words. I'm at 106,000 words. It's been a year and a half. I love it. I love it so much, Ed. I love it.
Well, so what state is it at? Is it out? When does it come out?
It's not out, but I've written, rewritten, edited, copy edited everything. I feel like the book is done. I am, of course, doing all of the right legal things to get everybody's permission to be in the book, or for their collections to be in the book. I'm waiting on one NFT collection to get back to me before I can say I can release this book. And but I have this. It's very interesting. I'm still trying to make some decisions about which way to hopefully release the book. I have it up on my Shopify site. You know, there's a website, greaterfoolsbook.com.
Yeah, I looked at it.
That's a Shopify site. You can pre-order the book there right now. I'll send you a collectible PDF to get the first 69 pages, and then I'll send you the PDF as an ebook once it's ready. And I say this summer, because that's really all I'm waiting for, is just one dude to give me his okay. And I keep pestering him, but he's real busy. The Solana blockchain gave me an activation, which means their yearly huge crypto conference happened in Singapore last year. So I went to Singapore in September, and they gave me a booth on the floor to promote this book. The Solana Foundation. I was amazed. Like, I was very grateful, and it was incredible. I met everybody that I had been communicating with for the last 4 years. You know what I mean? On my phone, the little people who lived on my phone. Like, I got to meet them in real life. You know. And people would read the book and come back the next day to talk about the characters, and oh my gosh, this is exactly what we need to onboard people and try to counterbalance this public perception that everything that has to do with crypto is a scam, you know, because of course that's out there big, and that's one of my purposes, is to do that. Like, I want people to embrace the wholesome part of it that I've benefited from greatly. You know, the art, collecting the art, getting to know the artists, the community side of it, and dispel some of these rumors that that's not quite all true. And yeah, there are scams. But I mean, Ed, did you ever get contacted by a Nigerian prince?
What time is it?
I mean, it didn't make you delete your Gmail account, right? You just need to educate yourself. So that's where I'm at with it. But when it comes to releasing the book, you can pre-order the book now. At a discount, of course. And I'm pursuing, you know, I part of me wants to blaze a trail in terms of authors releasing their work in Web3 on crypto, right? In blockchain. That means, and people have done it, but nothing's really hit the zeitgeist, right? So there, you could easily turn this whole book into an NFT, which just means it's an ebook that you buy, right? And try to, but my market is not the people who already love crypto. My market is people who love fantasy and science fiction, and want to learn about crypto more. So I'm right now thinking, and I've sent out a few. You know, do I want a traditional publisher? I don't honestly know. Do I want to go to Amazon? I don't really know. Am I going to sell enough copies on Shopify? Probably not. Not unless I can. And I'll just be honest, having been through it only one time, publishers, I don't know if I should say stuff like this in your show, but publishers.
I am a publisher, so.
Well, okay. So guys like you, they put your book in bookstores sometimes, or they promote it. They promote it, right? But what do we get? What do we get from publishers these days? Promotion. Right? You can tell your mom, oh my God, St. Martin's Press published my book, right? And that's great. And people love that. But are they putting money into the promotion of the book? Are they promoting it, right? I'm not, you know, I've had one major published book, and I've ghostwritten a bunch, you know. That's my perception on it. And if you go to Amazon, you make $1 a book and stuff like this. So I'm wondering that there are a lot of positives to cracking into blockchain for publishing books for authors. You know, you have control over it yourself. You can crowdfund it through blockchain. You can do all kinds of amazing things to reward and gather your community and your fans. You can gatekeep communications. You can easily offer rewards and little fun things for people to discover, and do collaborations all over the blockchain with coins and with NFT. You know, there's a lot that can be done, and it means you are in charge of your own project.
It also means all the work falls on you.
100%. 100%. Absolutely. Right. So that's why my own path, I'm wondering, I'd be thrilled to get a publisher involved and put this book out there. As long as we can really put it in front of a lot of people, I would be thrilled. Otherwise, I need to raise the money to do a publicity campaign.
Yeah.
Right. I've got a wonderful publicist who did my first book, who's raring to go. I just got to raise the money for him. So I was wondering, Ed, maybe I release this to my community as an NFT. I try to raise enough money to unleash the publicist. Can I do that? I don't know. I should have started this process 6 months ago, but I haven't. So I'm stuck wondering what's the right path for me. Ed, are you going to offer me a book deal, Ed?
I don't think that Shadowpaw Press can put it in front of a lot of people.
Yeah.
My print runs are usually in the 200 to 500 range. So,
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I have these big aspirations for this thing just because I feel like the timing is pretty good with crypto and the zeitgeist and the government and the ETFs and more interest and deregulation of things. There are, when I do my pitch decks, Ed, it's like 84% of the planet is crypto curious, 16% know anything about it. And there are all the hundreds of millions of fantasy readers. It's like, could we onboard a few to crypto? I don't know. How do we, what do you think of all this crap that I'm saying?
It's very interesting. I'm one of those who knows something about it, but I'm certainly not part of that world. To quote another Disney, we've already had Frozen. I might as well get the Little Mermaid in there.
Don't get me singing Ariel, bro.
Oh yeah, we could do a duet, but we won't. I'd probably get a copyright hit if I did something like that. But yeah, it's really interesting to me, and the publishing world is changing, and there are opportunities now that never existed. Are you concerned that if you don't get the book out pretty soon, it goes obsolete because the technology is advancing?
I mean, things move so fast; it already is. Like. It's funny because somebody else said that to me, and in a way, what can I do? All I can do is what I've done. And in a way, this book already is history, because it's talking about how NFTs were released in 2021, 2022. They're not being released the same way now. Will they again in the future? Maybe. But in a way, and some of my friends in crypto, they're like, that's not a bad thing, Scott. It's you've sort of documented history. And to be honest, Ed, I've taken the last 4 years of what's gone on in crypto and put it in a blender. So some of this, like I have events happening concurrent in the book that are 4 years apart in real life. So I don't know, but I'm sticking to the basics. I'm sticking to, the story takes us to a convention. Somebody's giving a speech and they're explaining what a block is, what a chain is, right? The guy and the girl, they have their first date at the Getty Center looking at art. He explains to her what a wallet is. He puts a wallet into her phone and they get to touch hands as they do it. And oh my gosh, it's a nice moment. You know what I mean? It's like it's kind of organic that way. And they're just the basics.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun. And I hope that getting it out there, however you do it, works out really well. You mentioned we've already mentioned the book website, but where are the other places that people can find you online?
Gosh, so that website is where you can learn the most about the book. You can reach me through email through that site. I'm most active. I'm active on Facebook as myself, as a human being. I'm active on Twitter as my crypto personality, and that is my crypto name. My anonymous name. I'm not so anonymous anymore, but it's Tboh, Tboh, right? And then a lot of us who started out back in the day, hundreds of hours ago, which is old time for crypto, 4 years ago. Half of us put the word degen as in degenerate after their name because we're all crypto degenerates, right? So it's Tboh degen is my handle on Twitter, and that's where I promote the book. That's where I make my little crypto statements and have my fun in crypto.
And other than getting this book out there, what projects do you have in hand or working on? Other books, other things?
I am always working on something for a client or another. I am right now working on a fantasy novel. I'm ghostwriting for somebody. It's actually the third in a series that I've ghostwritten for this person.
Hmm.
Love it. Super fun. What better way is there to make a living than sitting down and writing about dragons and mermaids? And it's YA. It might even be it's YA fantasy.
I've always been interested in well, it's not exactly ghostwriting. I was a house name for the what's it called? Beast Wars. Yeah, I think it was Beast Wars, which is like middle grade fantasy books. Yeah, ghostwriting has always sort of interested me, only because I would rather have been ghostwriting fantasy novels than writing some of the educational books that I wrote, like the Ayatollah Khomeini biography. Ghostwriting a fantasy novel would have been way more fun.
Wow, you wrote that?
I wrote a lot of stuff like that. Yeah,
Wow.
they're all short though. They're not like big.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag. I mean, back when I was a professional musician, I would produce artists by day and supposedly promote my own music by night. But I was so sick of music by the end of the day, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, I guess there is that too. If you're you're writing in somebody else's world, you don't have enough
Yeah,
energy to write in your own. Yeah.
But still, it's a great way to make a living. I mean, I've got I was able to direct and produce an independent film that I was hired to rewrite, and that was such an amazing experience after being a filmmaker in different roles for so many years, that I've got a couple producers out there trying to raise the financing for scripts that I've written to make as legit studio films, $20 million budgets. But I can't say that's something I'm very actively involved with every single day, but that's percolating underneath other stuff.
So still lots of stuff going on for you.
There's a lot. I have today I have 4 side hustles and no paid work. I'm promoting a music festival with 2 members of the Black Eyed Peas. I don't know if I'm a musician or a book writer or a filmmaker. I'm kind of all 3 at the same time.
You're a Renaissance man. That's what people usually say when they're they're doing a lot of different stuff.
I'm a guy who needs a job.
Or a freelancer. It also boils down to you're just somebody that's self-employed and or the gig economy and all that kind of stuff.
So. Exactly. But this book has been everything to me for the last year and a half. And it's a big deal in my life. I love it to death. Like I live and breathe it, to be honest. So this is where my focus is.
Well, hopefully you will find at least 2 or 3 more readers from the podcast.
And I don't want to, I want to just say, like, I grew up reading fantasy and science fiction. Like, all I ever cared about was reading science fiction and fantasy. So it's not like I'm like, oh my gosh, let me write this fantasy book. It's like I've started series before. There's nothing that makes me happier than writing fantasy.
Me too.
Yeah, right. Together we'll write something about the Ayatollah Khomeini living in the blockchain.
Let's not. Well, thanks so much for being on, Scott. I really enjoyed the chat. I hope you did too.
I did. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
And best of luck with this.
Thank you.
And thanks so much to Scott for that great conversation. Very interesting guy with a fascinating background. And sounds like a very interesting book. So, yeah, I do hope it's a big success for him. And I certainly plan to take a look at it as soon as I can. That's it for this episode of The Worldshapers. Worldshapers is to be found online at theworldshapers.com. You can find it on X at The Worldshapers. You can find it on Facebook at The Worldshapers. You can find me at edwardwillett.com. You can find me on X at ewillett, on Facebook at edward.willett, on Instagram at edwardwillettauthor, and on YouTube, where you may very well be watching this, if you are watching this and not listening to it, at Edward Willett. Also on YouTube, you can walk with me around my home city of Regina, Saskatchewan. I've been a little lax in doing it, haven't done it as religiously as I would like to because of pressures of this and that, and that's not going to change for a bit. But as we get further into the summer and closer to fall, I hope to get back to a far more regular, almost everyday walk of some sort here in my home city of Regina. I'm also a publisher, as I said off the top, and you can find the publishing company Shadowpaw Press at shadowpawpress.com. It's on X at Shadowpaw Press, it's on Facebook at Shadowpaw Press, and it's on Instagram at, wait for it, Shadowpaw Press. That's it for this episode of The Worldshapers. Thanks so much to Scott again for being on. Thanks to you for listening and or watching. And I'll be back soon with another author. Bye for now.